busy morning for Rodney, so we really appreciate him joining us because the Jayson Jones commitment forthcoming at 10 o'clock. And I'll say this, Rodney, unlike so many of these young men, Jayson Jones said his announcement was coming at 10 a.m. Daylight Savings Time on Monday, and by gosh, it was right there. He released his video. It is the University of Alabama. I got a chance to watch the video during the break. Now, he threw everybody a curveball. He threw everybody a big-time curveball. He put the Georgia hat on first and said, "Go Dogs," but there had been a lot of speculation in recent days that maybe Georgia had picked up some ground, but you felt like all along that it was going to be Alabama, and certainly this video had been produced ahead of time. He's been committed to the Crimson Tide coaching staff privately, and it looks like really never wavered from that.
Yeah, I mean, again, Gary, I haven't seen the video yet, but I know there was some discussion, I guess, at the end of last week about he may surprise the world and all this other stuff. But, you know, he's been privately committed to Alabama, I think, for quite some time. As you mentioned, I fully expected him to pick Alabama. So it's really not a big surprise. I know early on Georgia was a team that, you know, had kind of gotten the early jump. But once Alabama really kind of turned up the heat, Jayson Jones, big, you know, two-way lineman. He can play a lot of different, both sides of the ball, 6'6", probably, you know, 6'5", legit, 330, 340, whatever he is. He's a big kid and a guy that's certainly going to be one of the top line prospects in the country for the next class. Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. And in-state guys, high school coaches, former Alabama quarterback Andrew Zal, and again, you know, give Georgia credit. I mean, they recruited him very intently and certainly were a factor there. But this is a guy that Alabama's had targeted for some time. He's an in-state guy, even though he doesn't come in until, you know, 2020. These are the kind of players that when Alabama built this program under Nick Saban, yes, they've recruited nationally, but the best in-state guys, the top in-state guys, for the most part, Alabama has gotten those players. They've lost a few, but not many, and that again is the case with Jayson Jones. That's still kind of the pillars of this program is built still on in-state recruiting. Rodney, would you agree with that?
I think you always have to get the best players in the state of Alabama. I think some people have, you know, been concerned or not concerned, but certainly expressed that Alabama doesn't recruit as much in the state as they once did. And to be honest with you, though, there's never been a year that I recall that Alabama has not pursued the best players in the state. Now, there's some guys that they don't take that people think they should have maybe recruited harder. But they thoroughly evaluate. They're going after the best players, the players that they feel like not only are the best players, but the ones that fit into their system, their style, what they want to do, kind of people they're looking for. And, you know, again, you have to recruit at Alabama. You're going to have to recruit on a national level, and they've done it. You know, we've seen recruiting classes where they've had, 16, 17 different states represented. I think that's amazing. But the bottom line is this: yes, they certainly always go after the players that they feel like are the best prospects in the state of Alabama.
Let's talk about this young man. Now, because he's 2020, he's still got 2 years of high school football to play. I mean, not just this season, but next season. I mean, I hate to say he's still growing into his body at 6'6" and 230 pounds because he carries it so well already. But that's, I think, what makes this guy such a phenomenal prospect is that even though he's only going to be a junior, he is physically very mature. Now, I'm sure that, he's going to continue to get stronger and carry this weight even better. And once he gets under Scott Cochran, Katie bar the door, what could happen. But this is a young man, unlike some that we see at this age, he's not sloppy. I guess that's the best way that I can say it. He's already, and maybe it's because he's 6'6", but he already carries his weight very well, Rodney. You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think he's probably, like most kids his age, he's got some development to do. But you're right, he has a good base, good foundation. Certainly a guy that, has all the tools and when you in the frame and all of those things that Scott Cochran can do a lot of work with and mold him and, has a ways to go, obviously. Again, you recruit guys sometimes based on all the tools that they have and the potential that they have. And I think that's really what, when you look at Jayson Jones, you see a guy that has the skills that he has, the feet, the body, all of those things certainly contribute to the reasons why, you're recruiting. You're recruiting him based on potential. How can you mold him? How can you develop him? And I think when you look at him, certainly he's going to be one of the top lineman prospects in the country, for 2020 for all those reasons that we've talked about.
Since we spoke last week, or you actually were on with James last Monday, but since that time, of course, Alabama got its 17th commitment for the class of 2019. The 4-star running back, Keelan Robinson, from up in the Washington, D.C., the DMV district, they call it now, for the district, Maryland and Virginia. Outstanding athlete. I think that's the thing that you notice. Quick, fast, can catch the football, could help in the kicking game. Even though Alabama still wants to take another running back in this class of 2019, it looks as though they got a good one in Keelan Robinson. Great
versatility, a guy that, is not really, when you look at Alabama's style, that they generally have running backs. You see the running backs that they have are bigger usually, but he's a kid about 5'10", 190, great elusiveness. Kind of has a little bit of Drake in him, Kenyon Drake, the versatility. Maybe like an Alvin Kamara, versatility-wise, a guy that can break the long run. He can return kickoffs. He's an excellent receiver out of the backfield, just a do-it-all type player. Very, very athletic and versatile and big play ability. And you need those kind of guys, especially these days. You can line him up in the slot, Gary, as a receiver, and man, you get the ball to him quickly, and he can make some plays after the catch, and he can just do so many different things. And again, I realize that he's not really that same kind of back that Alabama's used to recruiting, but he's a guy that gives him a little versatility.
Trey Sanders, generally recognized as the number one running back in the country from IMG Academy in Florida, previously committed to Alabama, now not committed, but it looks like Alabama and Florida for him. This won't negatively impact Alabama in any way recruiting him, will it?
Totally different, kind of running back. He's more of what you when you think of Alabama, just the back that they have, the backs that they have. He fits that mold. He's bigger. Trey Sanders probably 6 feet, a little over maybe, 215, 220. He's that kind of back. He has those kind of running skills that they look at, they really like. And I think Alabama's certainly very, very strongly in the picture there. You mentioned Florida, and I'm not sure Georgia's not in the mix pretty strongly as well. I do feel great about Alabama's position as of today, though. I think Alabama probably takes 2 backs in this class. We've got, as you mentioned, we've got Keelan Robinson already committed. I think Trey Sanders, there's a great shot at him. I also wouldn't take my eyes off Eric Gray out of Memphis. Again, he's not quite doesn't quite have that same size that we've expected. But again, I think 2 of those 3, and there's a few other backs that they're looking at as well that they like. I think, but those 3 are 3 that come to mind. I won't be surprised if with Robinson if they get one of the other 2. And right now, I really like where Sanders and Alabama kind of are.
Rodney, the opening over the weekend in Dallas, a lot of Alabama commitments and targets there. And, of course, Talia Tagovailoa winning the long toss, 66 yards, a throw in the air, beating out Bo Nix, the Auburn commitment, by a couple of yards. And I talked about this in the first hour with Scott Moore, and, of course, everybody looks for comparisons. It's just what we do. I know players and coaches don't necessarily like it, but and it's going to be easy just to say Tua, because Tua is his brother. But I've got one that I think more closely represents Talia's game from what I've seen. One thing, he throws right-handed, and, of course, Tua throws left, but the body type, he reminds me of Russell Wilson, not tall in stature as far as quarterbacks go, but extremely strong and big arm. Just wondered what you thought about that.
Well, I mean, again, I'd like to see him a little bit more, but, the funny thing is I know that no one's having to contact the USC. Actually, it's a part of the Tiger Insider community, really close contact to USC, and they thought that Tua was a left-handed version of Russell Wilson coming out of high school. So that is an interesting comparison that you just made. He may be Talia. I know one thing, Gary, he's changed his body a lot over the last year. He's matured physically some. I think he'll continue to mature. I think he's gotten taller. I know Mark Freeman, the coach at Thompson's, told me that he's right at 6 feet tall now. So he's gotten a little bit bigger, but he's just got a lot of the natural instincts and things that it takes to be, we've seen him from Tua. The accuracy, the feel for the game, having all of those things certainly as a quarterback are extremely important. Some people like to talk about height and how it can impact a quarterback. And, you like guys who are 6'4", 6'5", and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But I'll say this too, Gary, having an opportunity one time to talk to one of the pro scouts for the Dallas Cowboys, and he was talking about the feel in the pocket. And, if a quarterback doesn't have that feel, doesn't have those instincts, doesn't understand the throwing lanes, really sometimes doesn't matter, 3 or 4 inches, whatever it is. But if you don't have that feel, it makes it difficult. And, you look at a kid like Tua, even though Tua or Talia, he's only 6 feet tall, if you want to say only. He's 6 feet tall, but he has a feel for where those throwing lanes are. He can create throwing lanes with his ability to move a little bit. So, height is something that I think sometimes is overrated. We saw it with Johnny Manziel a little bit. And Drew Brees obviously is one of the best of all time. And he's a guy that's maybe 6 feet tall. So I'm not really sure that height is necessarily the determining factor on how successful a guy can be standing back there in the pocket.
I saw something on the internet, and I decided I was going to ask you about it. I think it's silly, but in the world that we live in, it might not be as silly as I think. I saw some people discussing in one of these Twitter forums about, we've seen it now with college athletes, some of them not wanting to play in their bowl games because they're not big bowl games. They don't want to take a chance of getting hurt before the draft. And there's a lot of people that agree with that. I actually saw someone bring up the thought process that if he were the parent of a highly recruited high school player that had already made a commitment prior to his senior year, that he would not want his son playing high school football that senior season. He would want him training, developing, getting ready for college because he wouldn't want to risk injury. Now, I hate that thought. I'm in the camp. You play football to get better at football, whether you're at the college level, going to the NFL or the high school level. But I wouldn't be shocked with kids making commitments earlier and earlier that somewhere along the line, we might see that happen with a highly recruited prospect. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, I don't like it. You're there to play football, okay? And hopefully, if you want a future, if you dream of the future to be a great player, fantastic. But what are we going to do? We're going to just quit and wait till we get to the NFL? I mean, what if you take that guy and all of a sudden he has a decent freshman year, good freshman year, and you think, okay, as you project him along the way, this guy's a first-round draft pick, for example. Take a guy like Tua, who now I think is already projected as a first-round draft pick for the NFL in 2020, if I've heard correctly. So what should he do? Just go ahead and hang it up and train for 2 more years and not develop and just wait till the draft? I mean, I don't understand that at all. I mean, I just think that, these guys that you're right, Gary, you're there to play football. And, it's your senior year in high school. And I don't know that I'd really want a guy that would sit out like that.
I'm with you.
Because guess what? You get him on your college team, he'll quit on you there too.
I'm with you. And I just and I hope it never comes to that, but more and more everything is geared toward getting to the NFL. And even for kids that are 9th or 10th grades. And it wouldn't shock me if somewhere along the line we see that happen, where a kid says, I'm committed to so-and-so. I'm going to skip my senior year in order to prepare for college at the next level with so-and-so trainers and all of that. I hope it doesn't come to that, but it's a world that we live in.
That won't be a surprise. I agree with you. The direction we're going, nothing would surprise me.
Me either. All right, tomorrow night on Tiger Insider TV, we're going to have a lot to talk about with this Jayson Jones commitment, that's for sure. And, of course, your forums, I'm sure, are already buzzing with his announcement to go to Alabama. And TigerInsider.com is keeping people informed and has been, I guess, since, 95 now, Rod?
96.
96, yeah.
Almost 22 years now.
And how can people become a part of it if they want to?
TigerInsider.com. It's only $48 a year, just $4 a month. You can get instant access with your credit card if you prefer. We have an address there. You can send a check and gives you access to all our premium information, as well as, those forums that you're talking about, Gary. We have a good story by Tim Gale, the former Montgomery Advertiser writer today, right now at the top of the board. Even though it's slow right now, there's some recruiting going on, but things are really going to pick up, Gary, as you know, over the next coming weeks with SEC Media Days. Will be here before you know it, and then August camp opens up. It's going to take off. Yeah,
it's going to get crazy. Thanks a lot as always, Rodney.
Take care.